Hey guys, it's Roberto. And so today I'm actually going to be doing something very different. Today I'm actually going to do a live test for my podcast. I'm reviving the Create Something Awesome Today podcast, season 3, y'all. So we're going to be doing season 3. I have a lot of interviews lined up, but today I'm flying solo kind of to test my new podcast setup, make sure that everything's good, the audio is good. And I think that we might live stream it. I'm simulcasting it right now to several places, but I think that in the future, it'll pretty much probably be that I go live on YouTube and Facebook in the future in terms of simulcasting. And of course, the audio portion will be uploaded to the podcast channels in terms of Apple, Spotify, all the things. So that's what we're going to be doing. I have like my media deck here in terms of my setup and all the audio things. So I'm going to be doing that. So today I'm going to do an episode of that, and then I'll hang out for a few minutes after that and chat with you guys. So I'm going to set it up so that it's easy for me to either edit this myself or have the people over at Music Radio Creative do it. And obviously I'll edit show notes or anything I talk about here, but this is going to be more of an impromptu 30-minute podcast before I do lunch. So, hey, everybody, appreciate you. Let's go ahead and start this episode of the podcast.
Welcome to the Create Something Awesome Today podcast, where it's all about educating and motivating creative pros and entrepreneurs from around the world with simple and easy to implement ideas. And of course, helping you create something awesome today. And now, welcome your host. He is the founder of Awesome Creator Academy, a YouTube educator, and the biggest Star Wars nerd you'll ever meet, Robertoblake.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Create Something Awesome Today podcast. This is your host, Robertoblake, helping you create something awesome today. Today is really exciting for me. Today is actually a return to form. I want to start back up doing podcasts more regularly. I want to do them once a week. And I decided that if I use the YouTube channel that I set up for the Create Something Awesome Today podcast, which is youtube.com/CSAT podcast, CSAT podcast, then I feel like I could put myself in a position to actually be consistent and do the show that I love with all of you, because I have a built-in mechanism for accountability. And that actually leads to the theme of today's show, which is the importance of just starting something. Just starting something matters. And it's very difficult and challenging at times to be consistent at things. And there are a lot of other different challenges that go along with that. But you will find that the ability to maintain doing something is not nearly as difficult as just starting in the first place. And I don't think a lot of people acknowledge, appreciate, or respect the effort of themselves or even of other people to just start something and to do something in the first place. Take just doing an episode of this podcast, for example. It was a lot to just decide, you know what? It's not going to probably be perfect. It's probably not going to be exactly as I imagine or desire it to be, but it's fine to just do it and to just start, because I've been putting off doing an episode of the podcast literally for months, and it's unreasonable and it's unfair. One, I love doing this podcast. I love the feedback from the community, and I know that's something that a lot of you have said has been valuable to you, and that you've enjoyed it, listening to it while you work or during your commute, or you just like the idea of some of the thoughtful things that we discuss in the podcast. I also want to bring on a lot of my friends as guests and people that I respect and admire from the communities of creativity, entrepreneurship, and thought leadership, because I love having conversations with people. One of the reasons that I started creating content on the internet was to be able to talk to people like me, because I didn't feel like I had access to people like me, because I grew up in a small town. I was always growing up in small towns, military towns. I was always the nerd, the outlier, the art geek, and to not always have to feel like a freak of nature. The internet was a blessing to me, because I got to actually go to places and be in rooms where I didn't feel like an outcast, where I didn't feel alone, where I didn't feel like a freak, and where I actually found people that I liked and that liked me in return. And I wasn't having to, do things that I didn't like or say things that I was uncomfortable with just to fit in. And that's different, and it's so important. And that's what I love about our community. I love our community, and it's amazing. And this podcast wasn't just for me to have, a way to do stream of consciousness deep dives and thoughts, or to, show you how smart I am or how articulate I am. It was never really about that. It was a way sometimes to get thoughts out of my head, sure, but it was also a bridge to important conversations. And I miss having that as part of what I do on a regular basis. I miss having that be part of my week. I have some amazing conversations with all of the entrepreneurs and creators over in Awesome Creator Academy, my coaching business, where we have a membership website and a group, and we have a private Facebook group, and I live stream there twice a week. I do a Q&A, and then we also do a live training, usually on Tuesdays, and we do a Q&A on Thursdays. And what comes out of that is I get to have these great, wonderful, insightful conversations. I get asked the smartest questions from the people in my group, and I want those kind of conversations to happen at scale. It's easier to have those conversations in a private setting where people feel safe and where people feel comfortable and where people have context. But I also think that can happen in one-on-one conversations that I can have with my friends, my peers, my contemporaries, and even people who I've considered mentors for afar. I feel that if I can bring conversations to this podcast, that it can make some substantial difference in people's lives. It can open people up, and maybe people can feel less alone if they hear the stories of what some of these people have been through and what they've overcome. Right now, I'm doing this live across Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook right now, just to get this episode going. And yeah, this episode will go out as an audio episode later in the week. Don't worry about that, guys. But, someone in the chat is saying it's part of who I am. It's awesome that I'm getting back to that. And I couldn't agree more. I feel very good about it. And it's something that I've always enjoyed, and something that I feel brought out a different aspect of my abilities. And I feel that I've just missed doing this podcast. And so we talked about just starting something and why that matters. Well, this matters to me. I had to gear myself up mentally, emotionally, and technically to do this podcast again. And I think that the biggest barrier to doing this podcast again is I was spending way too much time comparing it to all these great podcasts that I see other people doing, all these podcasts that I see people starting, friends of mine, colleagues of mine, and people that I look up to and admire. And I was always finding something to nitpick at about why this podcast wasn't perfect. And I didn't want to bring it back with it being less than what it could be. And that meant that I was never going to do it, to be honest with you. And so I literally had to push record, and as they say, quote unquote, just do the damn thing. I had to do that, and I had to find a way back to just starting something. And I like that. And I have no illusions about it being the greatest podcast in the world, or something that blows up or goes viral or does any of that. I just am really interested in having great conversations with some of my friends and with this community that we've built, and just having another means of expressing important things and issues in the world of creativity and in the business of creativity. One of the reasons I started this podcast is I wanted to eventually get to a place that allows the podcast to be big enough to give me the access to talk to people about the truth of what their experience has been in the industry of creativity. And that extends to content creators, influencers, people you would know, but even people in professional life and that run businesses. I want to talk to them about what it's like to actually start a business out of your bedroom, instead of just telling you about what my journey has been and what starting a business out of your bedroom looks like from my perspective. I want to hear it from other people. I want to hear it from people who live outside the US. I want to hear it from young women. I want to hear it from women who are a little bit more senior. I want to hear it from, men with a different life experience and background than me. I want to hear it from people from all walks of life. I want to hear it. I even want to hear it from that kid that's quote unquote cultured. Not cultured, privileged. I want to hear it from that kid that is privileged, but decided that they wanted to walk out of their parents' shadow and they wanted to try to do something different than what was expected of them. I want to hear that because it may not look like a struggle to some people, but I know that mentally they're just a human being with their own type of insecurity. I also want to hear it from that person that literally came from nothing, that's closer to my background and didn't start on third base. I want to hear the things that we have in common, and I want to see it and hear it for myself instead of just focusing on what separates us, what makes us different, and what's the gap between us, what makes us feel less than, what makes us feel insecure. Because I really feel, and this is just me personally, I really feel that if we actually stop judging each other and we actually hear each other and we hear people's origin stories and we hear what a day in their life is like and we hear what's on their mind, we hear who they admire, who they like to watch, who inspired them. We hear what their relationships in life are like. We hear their successes and their failures. I feel like if we actually take the effort to stop dehumanizing people and to hear each other, that we all benefit and we all derive value. I think that that is something that is more meaningful in today's times than it's ever been. I want to share my successes, my failures, my struggles. I know that there are many people in this audience that could look at where I am today and maybe think that I'm in a privileged position instead of understanding that no advantages that I currently hold came without sacrifice and none of them were unearned. And if I had any luck in life, most of it was bad. And the good news is that you can come from that underprivileged background and one day become somebody that people perceive as privileged until they hear your story and realize that what you had to do never came easy and that what you have came at a cost and a price that most people wouldn't be willing to pay. And I think that the truth of success makes people believe like something different. I think that people have been surrounded by fake culture, fake media, fake news, fake influencers, all these things that tell them that they can't do it and that they're less than, and they have nothing to ground them in what is possible and what their potential is. I think people have nothing to ground them in reality and what their potential is. And I think that that's what makes it so hard to start. I think that it's so hard to start something because you can only see what you think you'll never have. And every time you scroll through your phone, all you're seeing is things that you have no context on, And so I feel that that's something that's not said enough, is that the context of what we were seeing is so hidden and is so nebulous, or it's not talked about, or that we can't really have any foundation for what is a realistic expectation for ourselves in any endeavor that we take on, anything we start. I mean, I'll give you a primary example. So many people want to be YouTubers right now, right? People want to do a YouTube channel, but they have no understanding of what a realistic expectation is. They get frustrated about not growing after doing 10, 20, 30 videos. Mr. Beast did, like, how many videos was it to get to? Mr. Beast did 100 videos to get to 786 subscribers. So Mr. Beast did 100 videos of effort and didn't even crack 1,000 subscribers. 100 videos. I see people getting frustrated and giving up after 10 or 20. Mr. Beast did 460 videos, I believe, to get to his first 10,000 subscribers. I'm doing research on that for a video that I'm making right now. There's the amount of effort and work that it takes to break through to any level of success, even a basic level of success, is very difficult. But all we hear and all we look at is the quote unquote overnight successes, the quote unquote outliers, the quote unquote unicorns. And when you look at how they started and how much they have, which is so absurd that you think that even 1% of that would be dope, when the thing is, even 1% of that is still not what 99% of people are getting, and those people are still successful. And there's something to be said for that. So I do believe that it feels impossible for people to start because they're looking at other people's middle journey, or they're looking at their finish line, or they're looking at the one or two outlier exceptions of people who got to start fast and take off on the ground running. And I really think that if people stop comparing to themselves, like comparing themselves to each other and comparing themselves to these outliers, to these unicorn situations, and sometimes, frankly, comparing themselves to an untrue story. You're comparing yourself to a story that's not true because you don't have the context on it, is something that also is toxic and undermines your ability to even just start something. People look at how fast Peter McKinnon grew. Peter McKinnon was almost 30 years old when he started his YouTube journey. He had already been working at a company doing amazing work and cinematography and photography for like a decade. He already had confidence and could do up close magic and had the confidence and the patience and the aptitude for that. Peter McKinnon was 30 years in the making to be somebody who could look like an overnight success. The context on 30 years to be an overnight success, a job for 10 years or so to be an overnight success, 15 years of holding a camera in your hand and never putting it down to be an overnight success. You see, we consume a false narrative around success, and we are told by so many people that it's luck or privilege or inheritance that produces success. And then we don't believe that our hard work can achieve anything. And so we have no self-esteem and we have no confidence because we keep being told that everybody who has what we want was lucky. If we were just told the truth about literally how hard people have to work and what it does take, and maybe it takes a little bit of luck. But if you keep attributing everyone's success to luck, you'll have a philosophy of despair that makes it impossible to start anything and to believe that your hard work is worth anything and believe that you can achieve anything. Why would you embrace a philosophy of despair? That is something I struggle with all the time. And again, I feel like I'm rambling or I'm ranting and raving here. I feel like, even this could be taken out of context. But I just don't believe in the predeterminism of success and failure. I believe that there are natural consequences to everything. And yes, who you're born into in terms of a family can make a difference or play some role in everything like that. But you know what? There are plenty of people who are born to crappy parents and become awesome human beings. There are plenty of people who are born to criminal, scumbag, evil, abusive parents and decide to be wonderful mothers and wonderful fathers and wonderful husbands and wonderful wives and spouses and wonderful people who contribute to and build up our society. I don't believe that getting dealt a crappy hand means you're doomed to be a crappy person. I refuse to believe that. And frankly, I kind of want to roundhouse kick everybody who keeps preaching that doomed philosophy in their face, sarcastically speaking. Cobra Kai. I mean, I really feel that way in my heart of hearts. I feel that people preaching a doomed philosophy of despair and predeterminism are robbing people of their confidence, their potential, their self-esteem, and the fruits of what could come from them just starting something they actually care about and actually give a damn about, and the belief in themselves that can carry them forward. And it bothers the hell out of me that it's somehow become popularized to not tell people to believe in themselves and to try to work hard and work smart. And I know that just working hard isn't enough. I'm the living embodiment of working hard just isn't enough. It didn't work for me for like 20 something odd years. I had to be successful in my 30s. Working hard in my 20s didn't cut it. But I wasn't working hard at things that were meaningful to me, that aligned with value I could create for other people. And once I started doing that, once I put myself on the path of how can I make myself valuable and useful to people who align with my values and my philosophies and things that I would like, is there anyone who's ever made money doing things that I care about and that I like? Has anyone ever made money doing that? What do I like? What am I reasonably good at? Who's ever made money at that? How did they do it? And how does this better or serve the world in any meaningful way? I had to answer those questions to find my purpose and my path in life. And it made the difference to ask myself those questions, but we're not taught to ask those questions. Instead, we're taught to, again, believe so many things that undermine our confidence in our success and our ability to really look at what our own potential is, what our value is, and to look for the meaning in our own lives. And what happens is we get trapped into doing what's easy instead of starting what is difficult and what is the challenge of our lives that we would want to overcome and to aspire to. And the fact that something might sound simplistic isn't the same thing as saying that it's easy to do. I don't think that it's easy to do what I tend to ask of people or to suggest in order to build success. It wasn't easy for me, but it wasn't complicated either. It really came down to tough questions and some self-awareness and simplifying things. Actually, it came down to ruthlessly simplifying, what is it I actually want in life for real? What is it I actually want out of this world? What do I want to experience in this life? Who do I want to be around? Who do I need to cut out of my life that's toxic? What experiences do I want to avoid that are causing me pain? What is it that I want to achieve? And what is it that brings me genuine happiness? What is it that makes me feel fulfilled? What is it that makes me feel confident in myself? How can I reinforce that? Okay, what is it I would have to do? And even looking at just restarting this podcast, part of that for me was I wanted to create the best experience for you guys possible. That's why, okay, you know what that meant? That meant investing in a better microphone. You guys remember how the podcast started and how it was the crappy audio from my phone? That was enough to just get started with crappy phone audio and using the Anchor app. That was enough to just get started. Okay, then I started doing SoundCloud, and that was enough to just get started. Then I got a slightly better microphone and a better microphone, and now I have the Shure SM7B, and now I have the Rodecaster Pro deck to do everything in real time with you guys. I went out of my way because I felt that you as an audience deserve a better experience of the podcast, and I wanted to give that to you. And then I started feeling not confident about being able to communicate my thoughts well, or to give structure to the podcast, or it would go on too long, or sometimes I would mess up the audio, and there were so many things. And so I decided that I'm just going to start, and I'm going to just start doing it live from now on. And that's going to be that. And that's what's going to help me do this and get it out the door. And sure enough, I don't think it's perfect. I don't think I got my lines perfect. I don't think that I said everything correctly, but being able to earnestly and honestly articulate my thoughts and to put this out and to do the podcast with you guys, one, I love it. And I love everybody that shows up for me too. I know that the audio from this is going to be reasonably decent, and I believe that, and that's fine. And so I'm going to use this as the momentum to push myself forward and to just keep making incremental improvements and to just keep sharpening it and polishing it, sharpening it and polishing it. And it's never going to be perfect, but it's going to be progressively and incrementally better. And you know what? No matter what, it's better than doing nothing at all. It's better than believing that it'll never be good enough to put out there. It'll be never be good enough for someone to find it enjoyable or derive value from. Just starting matters so much more than you ever, have thought that you could ever realize. Just starting is wildly practical. There's probably something that you've been putting off because you don't think it'll be perfect and you don't think you'll get it right. Can you imagine if I never put out my first YouTube video? Can you imagine if I never made the commitment to doing weekly YouTube videos and just getting better, knowing that they sucked? My first 100 videos on YouTube sucked. They did. They were bad. I leave them up, embarrassing as they are to look at. You can go watch. Go to youtube.com/Robertoblake2. Go to the videos tab, sort by oldest, see my oldest content, see why I only put out like 4 or 5 videos a year since 2009, and I didn't become a content creator and do weekly content until 2013, summer of 2013. This is my 7-year anniversary, 2020, my 7-year anniversary of being a real content creator. And by being a real content creator, I mean being consistent. I mean showing up for people. I mean making a commitment to an audience. I may have been on YouTube, but I wasn't a YouTuber and I wasn't a content creator until I made a commitment to an audience. I can't call myself a podcaster until I make a commitment to you. And so that's why I'm starting again. It's like starting over, and I don't mind that at all. A lot of people are so afraid to start over and to start from zero again. I relish it because there's nothing as refreshing for me as that moment of knowing, you know what? I have the freedom here to make mistakes, and there's minimum expectations, and people are going to see me get better. People are going to see the growth. People are going to see the progress. If you've ever seen my videos from a couple of years ago, you know how much different it has been to watch me become confident and to be able to assert myself and to deliver on my personality and to speak very bluntly, frankly, earnestly, to bring that radical candor that I've become known for. And it's who I really am, but I didn't have the confidence to stand in that for most of my life. For most of my life, I couldn't be myself because it wasn't accepted. It wasn't accommodating enough for people. And that meant that I was just saying yes to things. I was a yes man for way too long in my career, way too long in my personal life. I let people in my personal life and my relationships walk all over me and abuse me for most of my life. Most of my life is a series, frankly, of abusive relationships, believe it or not. That's hard to say out loud, and I'm fine to be vulnerable with you about, but I'll be real. It's like most of my life was a series of abusive relationships. And it's because I was being accommodating. I was not standing in my own truth and power. And I wasn't respecting myself enough. I had no confidence or foundation for confidence to do so. None at all. And maybe some of you can relate to that. But once you start on the path of being your true and authentic self, and a lot of that will come from doing things that are meaningful to you. A lot of that will come from doing things that actually matter to you as a person, things that you're doing because you want to do them, not because other people want you to do them, not because other people expect it from you, not because it is what you've been conditioned to do, not because of what your family wants, what the culture wants, what your friends wants, what your spouse wants, whatever it is, what the industry wants. When you can stand on your own and say, this is who and what I am and what I'm about, and you can accept firmly what that looks like and the consequences of doing that. And by the way, I'm not giving anybody permission to be a crappy human being. I'm saying that you have to own who you are, flaws and all, warts and all, and you have to make sure that you're finding the people that can accept that, but you also have to be willing to improve upon yourself and do the work to not yourself be toxic or abusive to other people, because that's not what standing up for yourself looks like. That's not what respecting yourself looks like. Respecting yourself and standing up for yourself is not at the expense of other people, but being good and being kind is not about allowing other people to abuse you either and to walk all over you or to disrespect you without consequences. Like all things, it has to be about finding that appropriate, perfect balance. Balanced as all good things should be, as Thanos would say, right? So, hashtag Thanos was right. But the thing that I'm going for here is that there's something holding you back right now in the moment. There is something holding you back right now in this moment from starting the next phase of your journey or from starting over fresh. And whatever that is, you need to reconcile that in your life, and you need to reconcile that in your mind, and you need to start by taking some kind of action, and you need to start by taking responsibility for the things in your life that you can do right now. For me, part of that was, again, you know what I can do? It's like, I don't have any calls. I don't have anything scheduled. I can do this podcast before lunch. I can do this podcast before lunch, and I can get it done. And I can make something dope that my community has wanted me to bring back, that I have wanted to bring back, that I want to do. And so I took a few minutes. I got this set up. I fought with the tech. Believe it or not, I had to fight with the tech. And we're out here. We're getting it done. We're doing it live, as the kids like to say, right? So for me, it was very important to put myself in a position where I could make this something that I can do and that I could build in a mechanism for accountability to myself. And that mechanism is I want to bring the podcast back Wednesdays weekly to you guys in the form of a live stream on the podcast YouTube channel. I've hired someone who's going to eventually help me cut up the clips from my podcast and from my other YouTube content to make short form content out of it. And so that's gonna be dope. And then I also have made a point again of investing in the right gear, the right setup, and in this desktop setup, standing desk for the win, in order to do this podcast in a way that is satisfying for me, is satisfying for you guys, brings the quality that you want. And again, I hope that the audio more than anything is fantastic, because a podcast experience is audio first and video second. And so I hope that that's playing out for you guys and that you're enjoying it, because I am. I really am. And I feel like the podcast is something that was very impactful for our community, and I think it can be more so. I think bringing on special guests, there are a lot of people that I want to talk to. I'm talking to good friends of mine as content creators. Many of them many of them are even people I look up to, and I think that's going to be great. I'm doing more podcast interviews and going on other people's programs, and I really admire so much of what I've seen come out of this community and people who are just starting. And I want you to have that message and that journey for yourself. I want you to be able to look back on 2020, not as the most horrible year ever, or the most horrible start to a decade ever. I want 2020 to be something you look back on as the moment that you started the next phase of your journey, and that you built something that you're truly proud of and that you think creates value for other people out there in the world. I want you to just start something. For the love of God, just start something. And it's okay if it's not perfect. Start something, and also try very hard to finish what you start. Try very hard, difficult as it might be. Believe me, I know. Try very hard to finish what you start. The way I'm going to try to finish what I start is, again, I made this as simple as for myself as possible. I queued up the intro, so that's already done. I'm going to queue up the outro when we're finished, and then that's already done. And then theoretically, the podcast is done for editing purposes, and I can just cut out the back end of the pre-show and the post-show wrap-up, and we're good to go there. So that's kind of like my thought on how I can make something easy on myself. If you want to just start something, make it simple. Don't make it complicated. Just start with the first thing first. Start with the easiest thing that you can do in a reasonable time and make it easy on yourself. And I feel that for me, to avoid all of the issues of what editing something to perfection does to me, and the fact that it means I never end up getting it out, I figured that the simplest thing that I could do was just do a live show. And that could help me to be consistent and to show up for you guys every week on Wednesday. It'll probably be close to around this time every Wednesday. And like I said, I think we're going to stream this on the podcast YouTube channel and on my Facebook. And right now I'm doing Twitch, but I don't think once I'm affiliate that I can simulcast anymore. So we'll be doing other fun stuff on Twitch. I love being part of that community. And you can find me at twitch.tv/Robertoblake if you want to hang out with me. I usually do that on the weekends. But I feel that making something simple is the easiest way to help you just start. And the thing I try to do throughout so much of my content is give you things that will make it easier to start. Sometimes it's giving you facts and figures and numbers and saying, hey, that person you look up to, when they started, they weren't any better than you are now, or they had to do a lot more work than you're currently doing to get not even as far as you, okay? And so that is powerful. That's powerful. I think that a lot of people, I'll tease you with the punchline of a video that I'm working on right now. I'm teasing a punchline. I'm going to do a video. How long does it take to get 10,000 subscribers on YouTube? And I'm going to bring up and show you how much content and how long it took some of your favorite YouTubers to get even to just 10,000 subscribers, and that it took a lot longer and a lot more work than anyone would imagine, because I don't think anyone has realistic expectations anymore. When you don't have realistic expectations, all you can see is how you're failing, because you're measuring other people's like progress with no context of what starting was for them, whether they had more to start with you, whether they had less to start with you, whether their circumstances was just completely different. And again, it's about recognizing that, by the way, somebody else's journey, their start, their middle, their finish, their end, has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. One of the most powerful things that changed my life was when I stopped as much, because I'm a numbers guy, so I still unfortunately do compare myself to other people. I like, but when I remind myself that, and that has nothing to do with me, I don't get in my feelings about what someone else has at all. I don't get in my feelings about what someone else has, and I don't have to be jealous of them, or I don't have to think about them in a negative way. I can celebrate the success of my friends, my colleagues, my peers, and even strangers. I can celebrate everyone's success, and I can empathize with everybody's struggles to the best of my ability, because I know that at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with me. It's not my life. My life is my life. I'm responsible for my life. I'm responsible for my happiness. I'm responsible for my success. That's on me. It has nothing to do with them. It has nothing to do with what they have, or what they, or what they did or what they didn't do. If they are not directly in my life, if they are not one of the 5 people I spend the most times with, if they're not someone I have a direct personal relationship with, if they're not somebody who is actively in my life trying to sabotage me, then it has nothing to do with me. And I don't have to worry about them, and I don't have to feel any two ways about what they have at all. And it was hard to get to that place. It was so hard to get to that place mentally. It was so hard. But you know what? No amount of money and no amount of math makes up for your mental health. I can tell you that. Oh yeah, it can help. It can offset other problems, but the voices in your head will get really loud when everything else gets quiet, And that's hard to say. And again, I know people will think, well, easy for you to say, or again, people will call me privileged for saying that. But I think everyone underestimates the mental health epidemic of our society in a very, very real way. And I think that people think that we can buy our way out of problems that are rooted in our human experiences, in our psychology, the fact that we are so much in our heads, and it's not a clean space. It's not. We are so much in our heads, and it's not a clean space, and it's not a safe space. When your own head is not a safe space, changing the world isn't going to cut it. You cannot change everything in the world and make it better and have a better experience if your own head is not a safe space for you. I say that as someone who's lived it. And I think that's one of the most important lessons of a lifetime, is that your own head has to become a safe space for you. Because you can get rid of all the toxic people in your life. You can change your entire circumstances, and it's not enough. It's just not enough sometimes. And so I need to leave you with something more positive than that. As truth bomby as that is, I absolutely have to give you something more positive than that. But what I will say is that the moment that you start with something very small, and here's something you can start today that will make you feel good. A lot of you right now are working from home. I want you to do something I did. I want you to literally clean your room. I want you to clean your room, your home office, your desk, just even cleaning your desk, or clean out one drawer. Excuse me. Or even clean out one drawer, and you will feel better. I think just doing that one thing, I feel that just doing that one thing is a check in the box and a small amount of progress that instantaneously will make you feel better about yourself if you just clean out one drawer or one cabinet, or clean your room, or clean off your desk. And then literally you can tweet at me at Robertoblake and send me a snapshot of your clean room or your clean desk and tell me how much better you feel. I'm not even joking. I want to see it. I love to see it, as the kids say. I want to see clean room, clean desk, clean office space. I want to see it because I think it's one of the first realistic steps you can make if you want to clean out your own head and if you want to get to a healthier place. And I think that's one of those things that if you just start, like I have a morning routine and a morning schedule so that every day I can just start the road to progress and the road to productivity and the road to being happy. My day starts with a morning routine. My day starts with jamming out to Lindsey Sterling. My day starts out with, brushing my teeth, washing this face, and doing my self-care stuff. And sometimes I go overboard on my morning routine. I soak in the tub and I'm 36. It's like ever so often those old aches and pains from car accidents set in. So I'm just like, you know what? Just gonna soak in the hot tub just a little bit longer and work out those muscles and bones. Just like, feels good. And so that's my self-care routine. You know what? It makes me feel better about starting my day. I start fresh. I start clean. I start relaxed. I start, feeling good about what the day can be just by taking care of myself. I go for a walk. I get some sun. I play with my dogs. Those things make me happy. Starting the day literally on the right foot, getting that cardio in makes a difference for everything I do. Everything I do revolves around setting up the day properly. And I think that for a lot of you, starting your day right, starting on a project, you know what? You got 100 something days left in a year. Or if you're listening to this a year from now and you got 365 days at the beginning of the year, you know what? Just doing and starting something and knowing, all right, I started something. I started step 1 of 364 to go. At the end of the year, you can look back on all of that progress and know, wow, it started with a single step. It started with me just doing it. My friend Viper just got to 100 episodes of his podcast. He's a small YouTuber. His podcast channel, I believe, has maybe 2,000 subscribers. So that means it's currently bigger than this podcast channel. And he has 3,000 something odd subs on YouTube, 5,000 followers on Twitter. He just did 100 episodes of his podcast. He's done maybe 50, 75 interviews. He's had people like iJustine, Sarah Dietschy, Marquez Brownlee. He's had the tech elite of YouTube, the creator elite. He just had Crystal Laura, a good friend of mine. He's had me on the podcast 3 times. He's had so many great people. He's had like 50 top tier influencers, all with over 100,000 to 1 million subscribers on his program as a smaller YouTuber. People are so intimidated by the idea of just starting that they don't know what they can achieve. He has soared the ranks of being in top podcast in tech before. And that's amazing. 100 episodes, that level of consistency. I don't even have that level of consistency with this podcast, and so, make sure you're checking out Viper with 3 Ys. So it's Viper with 3 Ys, and he's amazing. And his podcast is Vipe Drive, VYP Drive. And so I look at that. I look at somebody from my community that is a friend of mine, and I'm like, wow, here's somebody that is more consistent than I am. Here's somebody that is a smaller YouTube channel, a smaller influencer, and he's amazing. Look at how he works so hard and what he can achieve. And you know what? I don't feel the least bit jealous about that. I feel pumped, excited for him, celebrate his success, but it also pushes me to say, I can do better than what I'm doing right now. I never look at people and feel less than. I look at people and I feel inspired. But I only can do that because I cleared my head, because I wasn't always that way. I used to mad hate on people who had it better for a long time in life. But I think that's what you do in your 20s when you're naive and you don't know how the world works and you don't really know any better. But I think that comes from a place of pain. And I think that part of the path to freeing yourself from your pain is to start with what you can take responsibility for your life in. Like, what can you do in your life that would make it better? How can you take responsibility? What is it that you can do today, just one thing, that will make your life better and that is completely within your power to do? And I think that one of the easiest things to do is to go make your bed, go clean your desk off, go clean your office, go clean your room. I think that that genuinely starts a process of saying I'm someone who respects myself and I'm someone who respects my space, and I consider my space, my environment to be important, to be sacred, and to be worth preserving and taking care of. And so I think that that's where it starts. I think that, making the world better starts with things like not littering and taking care of and cleaning up your community and your neighborhood, and, not adding to that and not allowing other people do it to be responsible. I think that that's where accountability starts. It starts with your keeping your own space clean, cleaning your room, cleaning up your neighborhood, not littering, not letting something just sit on the street when you pass it by. I think that that's where a lot of things start to become better. And that's all we really have to do. We don't have to do much more than take responsibility and literally make everything that we can make better. If we literally do all that we are capable of within reason to make whatever space we enter better than how we found it, that's enough. And it's good enough, and it's great, and it should be applauded, and it should be encouraged for you to do that, and you should feel good about that. If you literally today got up and you took care of yourself, you should feel good about that you started your day right, because just starting something matters. If you cleaned your room, cleaned your house, cleaned up behind your kids today, and that's how you started your day, that matters, and you should feel good about that, and you should be able to check that out as an accomplishment. You don't have to change the world. You should be able to look at that accomplishment, and you should feel good about that. If you started today by doing any act of kindness toward another human being whatsoever, you should feel good about that. And that's a great place to start. And if you did anything for yourself to make your life better, if you did something nice to yourself, if you did something kind to yourself, then that was a good way for you to just start. If you have career aspirations, you have desires, let's say you want to make $100,000 a year. You know where you start? You start with learning how to make your first $100 that's independent of your time. You start with something very small. Can I consistently make $100 independent of my time? Can I make something automated or passive? Can I do that? And once you do that, how many times can I do that? And you rinse and repeat, and you scale that up. You start with something simple. You start with something manageable. But most importantly, you just start. You just start. As they would say, just do the damn thing. And I think that's where I want to leave it today. So thank you guys so much for listening to me for 45 minutes. I do think that just starting is important. I think it is my pivotal message for you here in 2020. I know it's very difficult. I know it's been a challenging, rough year for everybody. I know for some of us, it's been a rough decade. But I think if you look back, and if today you start something meaningful, if you start the beginning of your meaningful work, you will look back and you won't have regrets about how you use this time. And I'm not saying you have to be uber productive. I love being taken out of context on that one. I'm not saying you have to work yourself to death. You have to hustle to death. But I am saying that nothing works unless you do. In fact, I don't have to say that. Maya Angelou did. It's on my poster. Nothing will work unless you do. So don't take it from me. Take it from the poet triumphant. Nothing will work unless you do. And frankly, nothing will work harder on your behalf, and no one will work harder on your behalf than you do. If you want to see change in your life, I say don't wait for somebody to come save you, because they're probably not coming. And even if they did, they'll show up late. That's how it is. And I know that sounds very cynical, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to be empowering. It's meant to be, you have got this. You've got this. You're more than capable. You have all the potential in the world. You just have to start right now. My friend Nick Nimmin says it. Yeah, start right now. And I mean that. I genuinely mean that. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Create Something Awesome Today podcast. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/CSAT podcast, CSAT podcast, and make sure you leave us a review over on Apple Podcast under the Create Something Awesome Today podcast. I really do appreciate it. These podcasts are one of my favorite things in the world to do, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your day with me. It means the world to me, and so go out there and create something awesome today. Take care.
This episode episode has ended, but your creative journey continues. Visit createsomethingawesometoday.com and access all links and resources mentioned in today's show, all designed to help you create something awesome today.
All right, and that's it for the live show. I'm going to hang out with you guys for just like 5 or 10 minutes, and I can cut that out at the end of editing, but that is it for the podcast. I know some of you probably have never even heard the podcast or don't know that I have one, but we're bringing it back for season 3. I've done 2 seasons, 40-something episodes, and so this was season 3. And how do you like the transition to it being a live show? How was that for you guys? And by the way, how was the audio? Was the audio good for you guys? Because I went through so much trouble for the audio to be good. So how was that? Is it coming in clean? No hiss? Like, is it all the things that it should be? Audio. Adrian says the audio is great. World of Sin says I like the outro. Diana says the audio was great. Thank you, Organized Soprano, for showing up for me. Thank you, Simply Beth. Appreciate you. Dave, Killerish, what's up? Sony, thank you. Audio was great. All right, great. And yeah, and for the Twitch crowd, the podcast probably, because Twitch doesn't like you simulcasting, the podcast probably won't be live streamed to Twitch in the future, but it'll be live streamed on YouTube and Facebook, so you can hit me up over there, and I'm going to be doing that. I think we're almost to 10,000 likes or follows over on Facebook, so that's pretty dope. We've got a great community over in Twitch, and I hang out and I do reaction stuff over on Twitch. I just part of the community. I don't know if I have the chops to be a professional streamer or anything, but I just like hanging out in Twitch, honestly. And again, doing the podcast was great, and it felt good. It feels so good to just start and finish an episode of a podcast and know it's live, so that I have to put it out, so it holds me accountable. So yeah. And the podcast is on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on Spotify. If anybody actually uses Stitcher Radio, it's on that. So you should use this microphone during our calls too. Yeah, I am using this in the future, Adrian. I just switched over to this. So this will be the microphone for my coaching group. I do know I mentioned it. I do have a coaching group, Awesome Creator Academy. If you guys want to check that out, it's awesomecreatoracademy.com. I'm not really super pitching it hard. I do run some ads for it. But the main thing is, it's just the thing that when I was starting out, I didn't have any help to start out. It's something I want to talk about. I think I'm going to have somebody interview me about it. When I started out, I didn't have any help. And I've realized over the years that not having support was probably the biggest mistake in my entrepreneur journey, is not having some kind of support system. It made it harder than it needed to be. I also didn't have any structure, and that's why I've become obsessed with my daily routine and my morning and evening routine, is because I need structure in my life. As someone with ADHD, I need just enough structure and just enough freedom to be able to maintain myself. And I found that in general, it helps people even if they don't have ADHD or they're not a neurotypical in any way. That structure, as long as it's not too rigid, works. You have to have just enough of, hey, a morning routine, but not being held down to, oh, I can't do anything else. Having gaps in your schedule is important. So like, you're saying, is it slightly out of sync with the video? From what I'm seeing, I don't think it is. Yeah, I don't see it being out of sync. I'll have to check, though, my streaming like codecs and my stuff in the camera, because maybe I'm on 24p, but it's coming through 30, or maybe it's claiming to be 60, and it's like, I don't know. I have to check. So yeah, I needed support. I needed structure. I needed systems, and that's where, thank God for the technology and the automation and the things. I needed systems. Even having the hardware helped me streamline things. So I needed the systems, I needed the simplicity, and then I needed a strategy that would work, a strategy that has some basis in math and in truth and in fundamental principles and best practices. And it's like the thing that I try so hard to bring that to the YouTube channel, because I think it's that important, and I think that no one talks about it. I think it's wildly overlooked. I think that it's not talked about in any kind of realistic way. Yeah. You said watching on a phone, it does get delayed from watching on a terminal advice. Terminal. Okay. I have to look into that. Because I want to use the real camera that I have here instead of the webcam. I know the webcams technically work better, but you know. Am I running at 30 frames per second? I think I am. I think I'm supposed to be. I will double check that though on my camera after I'm done with this, because that could be what it is, or it could be the frame rate that I have the camera set at. So I'll look into that. In fact, actually, that's a slower frame rate. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a little bit better. I don't know, because I think I just changed the frame rate to be a little bit better. So I don't know if that improves anything at all. But yeah. But yeah, it was good hanging out with you guys. I'm going to end it there to make this easier to edit, because we have the clear intro, outro. And so I think that literally I can probably get this out tonight or tomorrow for the audio for everybody. So thanks so much for tuning in, you guys. I do appreciate you guys. Stay awesome, and I will catch you next Wednesday, unless I decide to do an earlier impromptu interview with somebody this week or this weekend. But if nothing else, I'll catch you here Wednesday, probably around 11. So stay awesome. I'll catch you next time.